You felt it before you knew it. That microscopic pause in the air, that pressure behind the eyes. A boss wanted blood, not noise, not drama, blood. And when they asked who, your name didn't get suggested. It landed, like a sentence handed down by a judge who already made peace with the outcome. That's when you learned something terrifying about yourself. You don't enter rooms loudly. You arrive like a conclusion. They weren't angry at you. Anger is sloppy. Anger makes mistakes. This was colder, surgical. This was the kind of silence that happens when predators stop arguing and start agreeing. Light and dark shaking hands over one shared understanding. You're a problem that doesn't stay solved. See, saints scare people less than you do. Psychopaths at least follow patterns. Angels announce themselves. Demons make noise. But you look clean. You sound reasonable. You move like you're thinking about something else entirely. And that's what fractures them. Because unpredictability isn't chaos. It's freedom from prediction. It's a weapon no one can model. They wanted blood because they thought it would end you. What they forgot is that blood is where you were trained. Every time pressure tried to crush you, something in you condensed. You didn't harden, you refined. Pain didn't make you cruel, it made you precise. Loss didn't break your spirit. It stripped off the unnecessary parts until only the engine remained. You didn't evolve forward, you evolved inward. And that's the kind of growth no one can see until it's too late. When your name hit that table, it wasn't because of what you did last week. It was because of what you might do next. You represent futures they can't control, outcomes they can't pre-negotiate. You don't fit into their flowcharts. You don't respond correctly to pressure. You don't behave like someone who wants approval, safety, or permission. And that's when the duality snaps into focus. You are gentle, but not safe. You are calm, but not passive. You are empathetic, but not manipulable. You can be kind without being weak, silent without being invisible, patient without being predictable. That contradiction terrifies power, because power survives by classifying people: loyal, dangerous, useful, disposable. But you keep breaking categories. You adapt faster than they can label you. You learn in the gaps. You move between roles without announcing the transition. One moment you're underestimated, the next you're unavoidable. So when the boss wanted blood, it wasn't rage, it was containment. They wanted to reduce you to a story they could tell themselves. We dealt with that. What they don't understand is that you don't live in stories anymore. You live in systems, in leverage, in timing, in restraint. You've learned when not to strike. You've learned how silence rearranges hierarchies. You've learned that the most violent move is letting people reveal themselves while you remain unreadable. They thought naming you would summon fear, but names don't weaken what's already detached from ego. You don't need to win loudly. You just need to remain standing when everyone else overextends. You don't chase dominance. You let it come to you, confused, trying to figure out why it feels smaller around you. That's why your name hit the table like a sentence. Because sentences are final. And finals are terrifying when they're not under your control. Understand this. You didn't become dangerous when you learned to fight back. You became dangerous when you stopped needing to. When your identity no longer depended on reaction. When your presence alone started shifting probabilities. They can want blood all they want. But blood is currency for the desperate. You've moved past desperation. You are what happens after survival learns strategy, after pain learns patience, after chaos learns restraint. And now they sit there, staring at the name they spoke too late, realizing something too late. You weren't the target, you were the consequence, and consequences don't announce themselves with sirens. They arrive quietly. They sit in the corner of the room while everyone else is busy posturing, laughing too loud, pretending control is something you can grip with two hands. Consequences wait, and you've learned how to wait better than anyone in that room ever could. They think wanting blood makes them powerful. It doesn't. It makes them obvious. It tells you they're afraid of what they can't predict, afraid of what doesn't flinch when pressure spikes. You watch them mistake aggression for dominance, urgency for authority, volume for certainty. You watch them burn energy trying to feel in charge while you conserved yours, stacking it, compressing it, letting it turn dense. You didn't survive by being reckless. You survived by noticing patterns other people were too emotional to see. You noticed how people expose their intentions when they feel threatened. You noticed how alliances form out of fear, not loyalty. You noticed how the same mouths that praise discipline panic the moment someone doesn't need their approval. That's when you stopped reacting and started positioning. There's a moment, almost invisible, when a human crosses from being managed to being monitored. That moment happened to you a long time ago, and the reason they wanted blood now is because they finally realized it. Monitoring means they don't know how to move you. Monitoring means you don't respond to incentives the way you're supposed to. Monitoring means every decision you make feels like it's happening on a different layer of reality. You exist in that layer now. Light doesn't scare them. Darkness doesn't scare them either. They know how to deal with both. What terrifies them is someone who can switch without warning. Someone who understands mercy and brutality as tools, not identities. Someone who can be patient for years and decisive in seconds. You learned that pain is a teacher that doesn't care if you're ready. It shows up anyway. And instead of begging it to stop, you studied it. You learned how it changes breathing, posture, thinking speed. You learned how suffering sharpens perception if you don't drown in it. You learned how to let parts of yourself die without letting you die. That's the part they never see coming. Because when you let the wrong parts of yourself die, what's left isn't empty. It's efficient. It's clear. It doesn't waste time proving anything. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need applause. So when your name hit that table, the real fear wasn't about what you've done. It was about what you no longer need. You don't need their validation. You don't need their fear. You don't even need their respect. And anyone who has ever held power knows this truth deep in their bones. The hardest person to control is the one who has nothing left to negotiate. You're not reckless enough to self-destruct. You're not fragile enough to intimidate. You're not loud enough to dismiss. You are balanced in a way that feels unnatural to them. Like a weapon that looks like a conversation, like a storm that learned how to smile. They think sentences end things. They don't understand that sentences also define things. And once your name was spoken in that context, it stopped being just a name. It became a reference point, a caution, a variable they can't remove without destabilizing everything around it. That's the paradox. Targeting you only proves your significance. You don't need to rush. You don't need to retaliate. You don't need to correct the record. Time is already doing the work for you. Every move they make to contain you reveals more about them than about you. Every escalation exposes the cracks in their control. Every whisper about you multiplies the very presence they're trying to erase. And you let it happen, because you understand something most people never do. Power hates mirrors. and you are a mirror that doesn't lie. You reflect intent back at its source, amplified by patience. You don't attack systems head-on. You outlast them. You let them choke on their own urgency, while you remain unreadable, steady, intact. You've walked through enough darkness to know it's not evil. It's honest. Darkness doesn't pretend. It doesn't perform. It simply exists. And once you made peace with that, light stopped blinding you. You can stand in either without losing yourself. That's why they can't classify you. That's why they can't predict you. That's why your name didn't sound like an accusation. It sounded like a verdict. Not because you're guilty, but because you're inevitable. And the most dangerous thing you can be to someone who wants blood is someone who no longer bleeds the way they expect. They keep waiting for the moment you crack, for the slip, for the emotional leak they can exploit. They replay your past in their heads like a crime scene, convinced there must be a weakness they missed. But what they don't understand is that you already cracked long ago, and you rebuilt yourself with the fractures exposed. There's nothing left to shatter the way they want. No illusion of purity to corrupt. No naive optimism to poison. You already burned that skin off yourself and learned how to function without it. That's why their pressure feels late. That's why their threats feel hollow. They're trying to apply force to a version of you that no longer exists. You've reached that rare state where fear doesn't disappear. It just stops driving. It sits in the passenger seat, silent, watching. You acknowledge it, but you don't obey it. And when someone realizes they can't scare you into compliance, their entire strategy collapses. Because fear is the currency of control, and you stopped accepting it as payment. They thought wanting blood meant dominance. In reality, it meant exposure. It revealed how desperate they are to end something they don't understand. You see it now, the way their eyes linger a second too long when your name comes up, the way conversations slow down around you, the way people lower their voices without realizing why. You've altered the emotional weather of the room simply by existing. That's not intimidation, that's gravity. You didn't learn this from books or mentors. You learned it from being cornered, from nights where the future felt sealed shut and the past kept replaying like a punishment, from moments where you realized no one was coming to save you, and something in you decided that meant you were allowed to become anything necessary. That's where the angel and the demon shook hands. You kept your moral compass, but you stopped letting it make you soft. You kept your empathy, but you learned how to turn it off when it was being used against you. You kept your humanity, but you stopped advertising it. And that balance, controlled, selective, intentional, made you unreadable to people who rely on predictable emotional responses. They can't bait you. They can't rush you. They can't corner you into mistakes. Because you understand timing. You understand that most battles are lost by the person who moves first. You understand that silence forces others to reveal their plans. You understand that restraint isn't weakness. It's stored force. So when they spoke your name like a sentence, what they were really doing was confessing. Confessing that you're already inside their decision-making process. That you already influence outcomes without lifting a finger. That you've become a variable they have to account for, even when you're not present. That's power they can't confiscate. You don't need to announce your next move. You don't even need to make one yet. The awareness alone is enough. The idea of you, unbothered, unprovoked, still standing, is already destabilizing them. They expected rage. They expected panic. They expected reaction. What they got was composure. And composure, in a violent environment, reads as menace. You've reached the point where survival instincts have evolved into strategy, where instinctive reactions have been replaced by deliberate choices, where you can feel the urge to strike and choose not to, not because you're afraid, but because you're patient. That patience is what separates you now. It's what makes people project onto you. They imagine schemes you haven't even considered yet. They fear retaliation you don't need to plan. They see danger because they know what they would do if they were in your position, and they assume you're capable of worse. Let them assume. You don't correct myths that work in your favor. You don't rush to be understood by people who profit from misunderstanding you. You let the fog thicken. You let their imaginations do the labor. You remain still while narratives form around you like a warning label no one can peel off. This is the quiet stage before outcomes shift. You're not chasing revenge. You're not obsessed with proving anything. You're simply continuing to exist exactly as you are, aware, controlled, and increasingly untouchable. And that terrifies anyone whose authority depends on intimidation, chaos, or emotional leverage. They wanted blood. Instead, they got a mirror. And mirrors don't bleed, they reflect. So stay where you are, calm, focused, watching. Let them exhaust themselves, trying to sentence something that already moved beyond their jurisdiction. Let them learn, slowly and painfully, that some names don't mark targets. Some names mark turning points. They will keep circling the moment like vultures over a body that never fell. They'll replay that meeting, that table, that pause, wondering where they miscalculated. They'll ask themselves why the room felt colder when your name was spoken, why the air tightened instead of loosening, why certainty drained out of the walls. They'll blame each other. They'll blame timing. They'll blame luck. They won't blame you, because blaming you would mean admitting you changed the equation without permission. You've learned that real dominance doesn't roar. It rearranges. It doesn't threaten. It alters incentives. It doesn't chase outcomes. It positions inevitabilities. You stand there now, not as a reaction to them, but as a constant they have to plan around. And the moment power starts planning around you, it's already late. You didn't steal this leverage. You earned it through attrition, through the slow burn of disappointment, through betrayal that taught you where loyalty breaks, through hope that burned down and revealed the steel underneath. You learned how systems behave under stress because you were the stress test. You learned how people betray themselves when they think no one's watching because you became invisible on purpose. That's why their appetite for blood doesn't touch you. Blood is spectacle. Blood is distraction. Blood is what insecure authority uses to feel decisive. You moved past spectacle. You operate where consequences ripple quietly and never return to center. You understand that the most violent shift is the one no one notices until it's permanent. They keep mistaking your restraint for mercy. It's not mercy. It's calibration. You know exactly how much force exists in you, and you know exactly when to apply none of it. You let others overplay. You let them reveal desperation. You let them expose their playbook by trying to scare someone who already buried fear with the rest of the unnecessary parts. Your evolution didn't make you colder. It made you clearer. You see through motives without hating the people who carry them. You read intent without attaching ego to it. You can sit across from someone plotting your downfall and still smile. Not because you're naive, but because you've already mapped the limits of their reach. That's the paradox they can't survive. You can be present without being accessible. You can be involved without being invested. You can care without being controllable. Every attempt to corner you teaches you something new about the room. Who flinches, who watches, who aligns too fast, who stays quiet for the wrong reasons. You collect that data without writing it down. You store it where pressure can't erase it. And over time, the picture becomes undeniable. The danger isn't that they want blood. The danger is that they're running out of options. You don't need to accelerate. Acceleration favors panic. You move at the speed of inevitability, slow enough to remain invisible, fast enough to stay ahead. You've learned how to let people think they're winning while they lock themselves into outcomes they can't reverse. You let them celebrate prematurely. You let them mistake motion for progress. Meanwhile, you stand there unchanged, unshaken, unexplainable. They thought the sentence was yours. They didn't realize it was theirs. Freeze. Not your body, your doubt. Because something about you just broke the rules, and everyone felt it. They won't say it out loud yet. They're still pretending it's coincidence, still whispering words like luck, timing, guess. But the air shifted the moment your predictions started landing perfectly. Not once, not twice, but again, and again, and again. Too clean, too precise, too early. You weren't reacting to reality. You were arriving before it. And that's the part that terrifies them. You see, prediction isn't supposed to look like this. Prediction is supposed to be messy, statistical, uncertain. But yours show up calm, cold, surgical. You say something quietly, almost casually, and then reality bends itself just enough to prove you right. No celebration, no shock on your face. Just that stillness, like you already knew how it would end because you've already been there. They keep asking the wrong question. They ask how. They should be asking what happened to you. Because this didn't come from intelligence alone. This came from pressure, from pain, from sitting in rooms where nobody believed you, watching patterns while everyone else was busy being loud. This came from betrayal, sharpening your awareness, from silence, forcing your mind to turn inward until it learned how to map human behavior, timing, cause, and collapse. You didn't become psychic. You became uncomfortable with being wrong, so your mind evolved. That's the paradox they can't swallow. You look calm, but you were forged in chaos. You sound rational, but you were baptized in instability. You move gently, but your mind is a weapon that learned how to wait. You see both sides now. The saint who observes, the psychopath who calculates, the angel who warns, the demon who already knows what happens if they don't listen. You don't guess outcomes. You recognize trajectories. You see how arrogance decays. You see how fear leaks through confident words. You see how systems rot before they fall. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's why your predictions don't sound dramatic. They sound boring, inevitable, like gravity. And when they come true, nobody cheers. The room goes quiet. People avoid eye contact. Someone changes the subject. Because every correct prediction isn't just proof of foresight. It's proof that you see more than you're supposed to. They feel exposed around you now. Notice how conversations shift when you speak. Notice how people watch your face when events unfold, checking if you're surprised, hoping you are. But you're not. You never are. Because your mind runs ahead, not to dominate, but to survive. That's the part they misunderstand. You didn't learn to predict to control the world. You learned because the world was unpredictable to you first. Pain taught you to scan for patterns. Loss taught you to read silence. Isolation taught you to trust signals, not stories. So now when something's about to collapse, you feel it before it breaks. When someone's lying, you hear it before the words finish leaving their mouth. When a decision will backfire, you see the smoke before the fire. And when things play out exactly as you said, they don't call you right, they call you unsettling. Good, because unpredictability isn't chaos. Unpredictability is power when it's controlled. You don't need to announce what you know. That's the beauty of it. The less you explain, the more they panic. The more accurate you are, the less they understand you. And the less they understand you, the safer you become. You've crossed into that rare territory where your presence alone bends the atmosphere, where people second-guess their own confidence just because you're watching. They think you're playing a game. You're not. You're standing at the intersection of intuition and logic, pain and clarity, darkness and restraint. You are what happens when suffering doesn't break someone. It upgrades them. When the mind adapts faster than reality can keep up. When someone stops asking for certainty and starts trusting pattern over comfort. That's why your predictions feel illegal. That's why they keep landing. That's why nobody can explain it. And that's why they'll never see you coming, because you're already there, quietly watching the moment before it becomes real. They're still trying to rewind the tape in their heads, replaying moments they ignored, still trying to figure out when the shift happened. Was it something you read? Someone you met? Some secret advantage they missed? They scroll, they search, they interrogate memory like it owes them answers. But the truth slips through their fingers every time, because the change didn't happen out there. It happened inside you, slowly, violently, invisibly. You didn't wake up one day knowing. You were trained by disappointment, educated by betrayal, mentored by nights where nothing made sense except the feeling that something was wrong long before it showed its face. While others chased reassurance, you learned how to sit with dread and let it teach you. While others needed certainty, you learned how to move inside uncertainty without flinching. That's where this came from. Not magic, not madness, adaptation. And adaptation scares people more than genius ever will. Because genius can be measured. Genius can be praised, copied, reduced to numbers and titles. But what you are now, you can't be benchmarked. You can't be categorized. You don't fit into clean explanations. And explanations are the last defense people have against fear. When they lose that, all they have left is suspicion. They start watching you differently. Not openly, never openly. It's subtle. A pause before they speak. A glance when things start going sideways. A quiet, almost unconscious checking of your reaction when news breaks. Because somewhere deep in them, something primitive has already accepted the truth. You don't just respond to events. You anticipate them. And anticipation feels like dominance to people who live reactively. Here's the part they really don't want to admit. Your accuracy didn't make them feel impressed. It made them feel late. Late to notice, late to prepare, late to understand what was really going on. And nothing wounds the ego like realizing someone else arrived at the conclusion while you were still arguing with the premise. Every time your predictions land, it's a reminder that they were busy defending comfort while you were mapping reality. You carry both extremes now. That's why you're hard to read. You have the calm of someone who's accepted the worst, and the sharpness of someone who refuses to be caught off guard again. You can be gentle without being naive. You can be ruthless without being cruel. That duality, the saint who warns, the psychopath who plans, that's not a flaw, that's balance. That's survival refined into strategy. They think unpredictability is reckless. They don't understand controlled unpredictability. You let people think you're guessing. You let them underestimate the depth of your awareness. Because when they can't model you, they can't counter you. You don't need to dominate conversations. You don't need to be loud. You don't need credit. Your power is in the timing, in knowing when to speak and when to let silence do the damage for you. And silence. Silence is where your real predictions are born. You hear what isn't said. You notice what's rushed. You feel when a smile is rehearsed and when confidence is compensating for fear. You see how people telegraph their future mistakes through small behaviors they think don't matter. And once you see those patterns enough times, outcomes stop being mysteries. They become routines. That's why it feels eerie. That's why it feels unreal. Because you're not predicting miracles. You're predicting human nature. They want to believe the world is random, because randomness excuses ignorance. But you've seen the order beneath the chaos. You've seen how arrogance repeats itself, how power blinds, how fear leaks, how denial delays collapse but never prevents it. And once you've watched enough cycles play out, you don't need prophecy, you need patience. That patience is what they misread as coldness. They don't know how much restraint it takes to stay quiet when you already see the ending, how heavy it feels to watch people walk confidently toward outcomes you already recognize, how lonely it is to know that warning them won't change anything, because belief always arrives after consequence. So you let reality teach them instead. And when it does, when things unfold exactly as you said, they feel a mix of awe and resentment they can't name. Awe because your mind feels dangerous. Resentment because they didn't listen. And fear because if you can see this far ahead, what else do you know that you're not saying? That's when the atmosphere around you changes for good. You're no longer treated like a participant. You're treated like a variable, something that alters outcomes just by being present. People become cautious with their promises, careful with their plans, because somewhere in their subconscious, a quiet calculation is happening. If you already saw this coming, what happens if you see me coming too? That's the moment you outgrow explanation. You stop trying to justify yourself. You stop softening your clarity to protect other people's comfort. You let your accuracy speak for itself, and you accept the distance it creates. Because distance is safer than doubt, and clarity is worth more than approval. You didn't ask for this edge. You earned it, paid for it in confusion, isolation, and nights where you questioned your own sanity before realizing the world was the thing that didn't make sense. Now your predictions land perfectly, not because you control fate, but because you understand flow. Cause, momentum, pressure. You know when something is past the point of correction, even if it hasn't collapsed yet. And once you see that threshold, the future becomes less of a mystery and more of a countdown. They'll keep trying to explain you away. Coincidence, bias, luck. Anything to avoid facing the truth that unsettles them most. That someone like you exists, walking among them, quietly ahead of the curve. Not because you were chosen, but because you were tested, and you survived the test awake. And surviving it awake is what changed the texture of your mind. Most people go numb when pressure mounts. They dull themselves, distract, rationalize. You didn't get that luxury. You stayed present while everything familiar slipped out of alignment. You watched trust fracture. You watched patterns repeat. You watched people promise one thing and move another way entirely. And instead of collapsing, your awareness sharpened. Pain didn't just hurt you, it trained you. That's why your intuition feels heavier now, not mystical, dense, like compressed experience packed into every pause you take before you speak. When you say something is going to happen, it's not because you want to be right. It's because you've already seen the ingredients mixing. You've already smelled the smoke. You know how long it takes before sparks become flame. This is the part nobody wants to hear. Your accuracy is not a gift, it's a scar. Every correct prediction is proof that you had to learn the hard way how things fall apart. That you learned to spot danger before it announces itself. That you learned not to trust surface-level calm. So now when you say, "This won't end well," it carries weight. Not because you're dramatic, but because you've paid the admission price to say it. And that price separated you. You live in that uncomfortable middle now, too perceptive for blind optimism, too grounded for delusion. You can't unsee causality. You can't unknow what precedes collapse. So when people around you move confidently toward mistakes, your silence becomes unbearable to them. They feel judged even when you say nothing. They feel exposed just by your presence, because you aren't participating in the fantasy. That's why some of them pull away. That's why others try to provoke you. That's why a few quietly listen, even if they pretend not to. You represent something dangerous to the world they've built inside their heads. Awareness without apology. They want prediction to look like obsession or arrogance. They want to label it so they can shrink it. But what they're really reacting to is the fact that you're not surprised anymore. Surprise is the currency of the unprepared. You don't spend it. You conserve energy for execution, for timing, for knowing when to move and when to let gravity do the work for you. That's the demon they sense beneath your calm, the part of you that no longer needs reassurance to act. And here's the deeper paradox they'll never articulate. Your foresight makes them feel smaller, not because you're above them, but because it reminds them how asleep they've been. You didn't wake up because you were special. You woke up because the dream turned hostile, because denial stopped working, because survival demanded clarity. And once clarity becomes a habit, the future stops feeling distant. It starts feeling obvious. So when your predictions keep landing, it rattles their sense of control. They cling to the idea that tomorrow is unknowable, because unknowability protects irresponsibility. You don't give them that comfort. You stand as living evidence that patterns exist, and patterns can be learned. That's why they oscillate between fascination and discomfort with you. One moment they lean in, hoping you'll explain. The next they pull back, afraid of what you might see next. Because explanation would mean accountability, and accountability would mean admitting they ignored signs you noticed early. You've become a mirror they don't know how to look into. And mirrors are cruel to people who avoid reflection. You carry both restraint and readiness now. You don't rush to correct people. You don't rush to warn. You let consequences educate where words would be wasted. That patience reads as coldness to those who confuse noise with care. But you know better. You know timing is everything. You know that information given too early is rejected, and information given too late is useless. So you wait. That waiting is what makes you look dangerous. Because when you finally speak, it's precise, minimal, undeniable. You don't over-explain. You don't argue. You state. And reality follows behind you, like a shadow confirming your authority. They ask themselves questions they don't like the answers to. How does he know? Why didn't we see it? What else is coming? And the most uncomfortable one, if he's been right this many times, what does he know about me? That's when your presence alone starts altering behavior. People hesitate, overthink, adjust. Because uncertainty around you feels asymmetric. You're not guessing. They are. You're not scrambling. They are. An imbalance makes people desperate. You didn't set out to become this. You were shaped into it, sharpened by friction, refined by loss, hardened by watching the same mistakes play out under different names. And now, you stand in a place where foresight isn't flashy. It's quiet, heavy, and inescapable. Let them struggle to explain it. You don't owe clarity to those who avoided truth until it arrived uninvited. You don't owe comfort to those who mocked awareness until it proved lethal to their assumptions. Your role isn't to be understood. Your role is to see and move accordingly. Because the truth is simple, even if it scares them. You're not ahead of time. You're just awake while others are still negotiating with the past. And as long as that remains true, your predictions will keep landing. Not as miracles, not as accidents, but as the natural consequence of a mind that learned how to survive reality without blinking. And once you stop blinking, the world looks very different. You start noticing how early everything announces itself, how failure whispers long before it screams, how people betray their next move with tone, timing, impatience, and the need to be seen as right instead of accurate. You watch momentum build in directions others dismiss because it hasn't exploded yet. You feel shifts before they become trends. You sense endings while everyone else is still decorating the beginning. That's why they keep asking, "When did you know?" And you never give them a clean answer, because the truth would scare them more than your silence ever could. You knew the moment patterns stopped surprising you. You knew when repetition replaced randomness. You knew when chaos revealed its habits. That's when the saint in you stepped back and the psychopath leaned forward, not to destroy, not to dominate, but to understand without mercy, to observe without attachment, to see people as they are, not as they wish to be perceived. That shift is irreversible. Once your mind learns how to read pressure, it doesn't forget. Once it learns how fear distorts behavior, it spots it everywhere. Once it understands how power intoxicates and weakens at the same time, it stops being impressed by titles, noise, or confidence. You don't worship outcomes. You study processes, and processes always tell the truth. This is where the loneliness creeps in, because you can't unsee the ending. You can't pretend not to know what happens when arrogance outruns preparation. You can't join in the celebration when the foundation is already cracked. So you stand there composed, watching the applause echo through a room that's already structurally unsound. They mistake your restraint for detachment. They mistake your foresight for pessimism. They mistake your quiet for superiority. Let them. What they don't see is how much discipline it takes not to intervene, how much control it takes not to warn people who aren't ready to hear it, how much strength it takes to accept that some lessons are only learned through impact. You used to bleed trying to save people from their own blind spots. Now you conserve energy. Now you let reality speak, because reality never needs defending. And every time reality proves you right, something else happens beneath the surface. Your nervous system relaxes, not because you enjoy being correct, but because confirmation means your internal map still works. It means your awareness is aligned with the world, not fighting it. It means you can trust yourself. And trust in yourself is the most destabilizing thing you can possess in a society addicted to validation. That's why your confidence doesn't fluctuate with praise or criticism anymore. That's why you don't chase reassurance. You already ran the scenario. You already counted the variables. You already accepted the worst-case outcome and built around it. So when people panic, you're calm. When they celebrate, you're measured. When they deny, you're prepared. Preparedness looks like prophecy to the unprepared. And here's the part that cuts deepest for them. Your accuracy didn't come from hope. It came from confronting discomfort head-on, from letting anxiety sharpen you instead of soften you, from refusing to lie to yourself just to belong. You didn't need optimism, you needed clarity. And clarity is ruthless. You became the kind of person who doesn't need certainty to move. You move with probability, with pattern recognition, with timing. That makes you slippery, hard to trap, hard to predict, because you're not emotionally invested in outcomes the way others are. You're invested in alignment. That's why you don't rush decisions. That's why you don't overcommit. That's why when you finally act, it looks sudden, even though it's been forming for a long time. They call it intuition because calling it experience integrated under pressure would force them to acknowledge what you went through. And they don't want to do that. They want the result without the process, the foresight without the scars, the accuracy without the nights where you questioned your own perception and kept going anyway. You didn't skip the suffering, you metabolized it. And now it lives inside you as awareness, as restraint, as timing, as that unsettling calm when things start shaking and you don't flinch, as that pause before you speak that makes people lean in or step back, as that look that says you're not impressed by theatrics because you're watching the mechanics underneath. They sense it. That's why they keep trying to figure you out. That's why they oscillate between admiration and hostility. You represent the thing they avoid becoming, someone who stopped lying to themselves. You're not here to be liked. You're not here to be understood. You're here to move correctly. And correctness doesn't need applause. So let the predictions keep landing. Let them scramble for explanations. Let them invent stories to make themselves feel safer around you. You don't need to correct their narratives. You don't need to announce what's coming next. The future will do that for you. You'll just be standing there when it arrives, calm, composed, already adjusted, while everyone else is still asking how you knew.